Darius Morgan had always been the ideal citizen of Oak Ridge County, a decorated Marine veteran with 2 tours in Afghanistan, owner of a thriving construction company, father to twin daughters, and husband to Vanessa, a respected trauma psychologist who dedicated her career to helping victims of violence rebuild their lives. Their perfect world shattered on the rain-soaked night of September 23, 2018, when 3 police officers with badges meant to protect became predators, hunting in the dark. Vanessa was driving home from a community fundraiser for underprivileged youth when flashing lights appeared in her rearview mirror. The cruiser had no visible markings, except for a small county emblem. Protocol dictated they check her license and registration, perhaps issue a warning for the broken taillight. Instead, they forced her into the back seat, drove to an abandoned warehouse, and destroyed her life. When Vanessa finally made it home at 4:37 a.m., her elegant black dress was torn, her face bruised, and her eyes vacant. Darius rushed her to Memorial Hospital, where the attending physician, Dr. Rivera, documented her injuries with clinical precision: fractured ribs, concussion, defensive wounds on her hands and arms. "We need to call the police," Dr. Rivera said. The responding officers took statements with professional detachment that bordered on indifference. When Vanessa described her attackers, Captain Richard Wilson, Detective Thomas Grayson, and Officer Andrew Mercer, the officers exchanged glances. All 3 men were local heroes, fixtures at charity events, officers with impeccable service records. "We'll investigate thoroughly," they promised. The investigation file was closed within 48 hours. Darius requested the security footage from traffic cameras along the route where Vanessa was stopped. "Technical malfunction," came the response. He sought witnesses from nearby businesses. No one was working that shift. He demanded the GPS logs from the patrol car, records corrupted during routine system maintenance. At every turn, evidence disappeared like smoke in the wind. Despite the institutional roadblocks, Vanessa identified her attackers without hesitation. Captain Richard Wilson had distinctive green eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Detective Thomas Grayson wore an unusual ring with a wolf's head design. Officer Andrew Mercer had a scar running from his left ear to his jawline. Details so specific they couldn't be fabricated, yet insufficient to overcome the blue wall of silence. Darius appealed to every authority he could reach: the district attorney's office, the state police, the FBI, internal affairs, each time providing meticulously organized evidence. Each time receiving the same response: insufficient evidence to proceed. The system wasn't merely failing, it was actively protecting the predators within its ranks. The Whisper campaign started 3 weeks after they filed the first report. Anonymous calls to Vanessa's clinic, questioning her professional judgment. Patients canceling appointments. Articles in the local paper about unsubstantiated allegations against respected officers. The message was clear: stop pushing or face the consequences. Then came the photos in their mailbox, surveillance images of their daughters at school. No note, no explicit threat, just the chilling implication that those they loved most were being watched. "We can't fight this," Vanessa whispered that night, her voice breaking. "They won't stop until they've taken everything." The breaking point came when Darius discovered racial slurs spray-painted across their garage door one morning. "Lying new bitch" in blood, red letters 3 feet tall. Their daughters, only 10 years old, stood frozen in the driveway, backpacks clutched to their chests, witnessing the hatred directed at their family for the first time. That night, Vanessa wrote detailed letters to her parents, her daughters, and Darius. She arranged files containing all the evidence they'd gathered. Then, while Darius was picking up the girls from their piano lesson, she filled the bathtub, slashed her wrists vertically with surgical precision, and slipped beneath the water. Her final note read, "I'm sorry, I can't bear their eyes on me anymore. Protect our girls. Find justice your way." At the funeral, Darius stood expressionless, a statue carved from obsidian. He didn't cry when they lowered her casket. He didn't speak during the service. Family members whispered about shock, about grief too profound for tears. None recognized the transformation occurring beneath his stoic exterior. Darius Morgan, husband, father, builder, died that day alongside his wife. What remained was a vessel of focused rage, a precision instrument of retribution. Before disappearing, Darius delivered a sealed package to Congresswoman Eleanor Hayes, a former prosecutor with a reputation for integrity. The package contained witness statements, medical records, and surveillance footage he'd obtained through private channels. Enough to launch an official investigation, but insufficient for immediate arrests. The officers were placed on administrative leave with pay, a vacation rather than punishment. Darius sent his daughters to live with Vanessa's parents in Atlanta, transferred his company to his foreman with legal provisions ensuring the girls' financial security, and liquidated his personal assets. To the outside world, he appeared to be another victim broken by tragedy, a man unable to face life without his wife. No one suspected he was meticulously planning a reckoning 5 years in the making. Special Agent Zoe Washington of the FBI's Civil Rights Division received the case file on Vanessa Morgan in December 2018. The investigation had stalled, evidence contaminated or missing, witnesses suddenly uncooperative. "This reeks of obstruction," she told her partner. When she requested authorization to pursue the case, her supervisor advised caution. "These are complicated matters in small communities. Proceed carefully." Translation, don't rock the boat. While Agent Washington navigated bureaucratic barriers, Darius Morgan had vanished completely. Using military connections, he obtained new identification as Isaiah Reynolds, a security consultant with spotless credentials. The transformation wasn't merely paperwork, it was a total reinvention. His first destination, a remote compound in Montana where former Delta Force operator Samuel Garcia trained private security personnel. "I need to become invisible," Darius told Garcia. "I need to move through the world like a ghost." For 6 months, he trained relentlessly. Surveillance techniques, counterintelligence, advanced combat tactics. Garcia, believing he was training a contractor for overseas security work, pushed him beyond normal limits. "You fight like a man with nothing to lose," Garcia observed during a particularly brutal sparring session. Darius didn't correct him. From Montana, Darius traveled to Chicago, where he connected with Dante Williams, a former NSA analyst discharged for ethical concerns about domestic surveillance programs. In exchange for funding Williams's cybersecurity startup, Dante taught him how to track digital footprints, hack secure systems, and erase his own presence from databases. "Whatever you're planning," Williams said as they concluded their training, "make it count." Year 2 of his preparation took Darius to Miami, where he worked as security for Nicolas Vega, a defense attorney with clients throughout Latin America. There he learned how corrupt officials operated, how they protected themselves, the weaknesses in their armor. He studied their patterns with the detached focus of an alien culture. By the 3rd year, nothing remained of Darius Morgan. Isaiah Reynolds stood 6 feet tall, moved with military precision, and spoke in a measured baritone that revealed nothing of his inner thoughts. He'd altered his appearance, added 15 pounds of muscle, grown a neatly trimmed beard, changed his walk, his handwriting, even the cadence of his speech. The man who had once built homes now built weapons from the fragments of his shattered life. In a warehouse on the industrial outskirts of Oak Ridge County, Darius established his operational headquarters. The space resembled a military command center. Walls covered with surveillance photos, timelines, relationship maps. 3 primary targets dominated the central wall: Captain Richard Wilson, now Assistant Chief of Police, Detective Thomas Grayson, who had left the force to start Sentinel Security Services, and Officer Andrew Mercer, dismissed following an unrelated excessive force complaint, but now employed as security at the Lakeside Casino. The only personal item in the warehouse was a framed photograph of Vanessa and their daughters, taken during their last family vacation to the Grand Canyon. The glass had cracked during transport, a jagged line separating Darius from his family. He left it broken, a reminder of what could never be repaired. Darius spent the final 2 years of preparation studying his targets with obsessive detail. Wilson lived in an upscale neighborhood with his 3rd wife, a former department secretary 20 years his junior. Grayson's security company provided protection for the county's wealthy elite, operating with tacit permission to bypass certain regulations. Mercer had developed a gambling problem that left him indebted to dangerous people, making him reckless and unpredictable. In January 2023, Isaiah Reynolds, the identity Darius now fully inhabited, returned to Oak Ridge County. He rented an apartment in the renovated factory district and established a routine designed for invisibility. He worked remotely as a cybersecurity consultant, interacted minimally with neighbors, and projected the persona of a reserved professional who valued privacy. No one connected this stranger with the broken widower who had left town 5 years earlier. Andrew Mercer had fallen far from his position of authority. Dismissed from the police force following excessive force complaints, he'd leveraged his law enforcement connections to secure a position in security at Lakeside Casino. His nightly routine never varied. Work until midnight, stop at O'Malley's bar for 2 double whiskeys, return to his apartment above the laundromat on Jefferson Street. The predictability that made police work easy made him a perfect first target. For 2 weeks, Darius observed Mercer's movements, noting the sloppy security practices of a man who believed himself untouchable. No alarm system. Same route home every night. Front door key hidden in a magnetic box under the mailbox. The arrogance of impunity would be his downfall. On February 17, 2023, Mercer left O'Malley's at 12:47 a.m., slightly intoxicated but functional. As he fumbled for his keys in the poorly lit parking lot, a figure in a maintenance uniform approached. "Mr. Mercer, you dropped this inside." When Mercer turned, Darius fired a tranquilizer dart that struck him in the neck. Within seconds, the former officer collapsed onto the asphalt. Mercer regained consciousness strapped to a metal table in an abandoned meat processing plant on the county line. The room was clinically sterile, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights that made his eyes water. Before him stood a figure in surgical scrubs, face obscured by a mask, hands covered by latex gloves. "Officer Mercer," Darius said, voice distorted through a modifier, "tonight you face judgment for Vanessa Morgan." I don't know what you're talking about," Mercer stammered, eyes darting wildly. "You've got the wrong guy." Darius placed a laptop on a small table and played a video security footage from Vanessa's clinic showing Mercer watching the building 3 days before her assault. Footage that had mysteriously disappeared from official evidence. "Shall we continue denying what we both know to be true?" Darius asked, "or shall we proceed to your confession?" Mercer initially attempted defiance, then threats, finally degrading to desperate pleas as Darius methodically applied techniques designed to extract information without leaving visible evidence. "Wilson picked her," he gasped, after 3 hours. "Said she was special. Said no one would believe a black woman over us anyway. We've done it before. Wilson keeps recordings, some kind of insurance." Darius recorded every word as Mercer revealed the operational details of what the officers called their hunting club, how Wilson selected victims, how Grayson handled evidence cleanup, how they intimidated witnesses and manipulated investigations. "How many women?" Darius asked. "I don't know," Mercer whimpered. "I lost count after 15. When the confession was complete, Darius administered justice with the same methodical precision that had characterized Vanessa's assault. The following morning, 2 teenagers found Mercer's body floating in Turner Creek, wounds matching those described in Vanessa's medical report. Attached to his chest was a waterproof pouch containing a USB drive. Detective Layla Corey, newly transferred to Oak Ridge County's Major Crimes Unit, was assigned the case. Within hours, the USB drive's contents had been verified. Andrew Mercer confessing to multiple assaults, including Vanessa Morgan's. The recording had been edited to remove any mention of accomplices, focusing solely on Mercer's crimes. "This isn't random," Corey told her partner. "This is calculated, planned, personal." Assistant Chief Wilson responded to news of Mercer's death with practiced concern, promising a thorough investigation and swift justice. Privately, he placed a call to Thomas Grayson. "We have a problem," he said, voice tense. "Someone knows." Grayson immediately increased security at his home and business, installing additional cameras and hiring 2 former military contractors as personal protection. Thomas Grayson had built Sentinel Security into a profitable enterprise, securing the homes and businesses of Oak Ridge County's elite. His clients included judges, county commissioners, and wealthy developers, people who appreciated his discretion and connections. Unlike Mercer, Grayson was intelligent, cautious, and infinitely more dangerous. He thought like both predator and prey. Darius recognized that a direct approach would fail with Grayson. Instead, he created an elaborate cover as Edward Mitchell, a real estate developer from Chicago looking to invest in Oak Ridge County. He contacted Sentinel Security about comprehensive protection services for his pending projects, insisting on meeting the company's founder personally given the sensitive nature of his security needs. Intrigued by the potential 7-figure contract, Grayson agreed to meet at the exclusive Oak Ridge Country Club. He arrived with a 4-man security team positioned strategically throughout the restaurant. Darius noted their positions, their weapons, their vigilance. This would require precision timing and perfect execution. During their lunch meeting, Darius casually mentioned his friendship with Judge Carlton, one of Grayson's most prominent clients. "The judge speaks highly of your discretion," Darius said, watching Grayson's expression carefully, "says you handle delicate matters that others might find problematic." The reference to Carlton, who had helped suppress evidence in Vanessa's case, created an immediate connection. As they discussed security arrangements, Darius discreetly slipped a compound into Grayson's drink that would induce symptoms resembling a severe allergic reaction. 40 minutes later, as they toured a potential development site, Grayson began experiencing difficulty breathing. His security team rushed him to Oak Ridge Memorial Hospital, creating precisely the controlled chaos Darius had anticipated. When Grayson was admitted to the emergency department, Darius was already there, wearing scrubs and an ID badge identifying him as Dr. Carter from Infectious Disease Control. "Potential exposure at the restaurant," he explained to the attending physician. "I need to test him immediately. CDC protocol." The hospital staff, faced with apparent federal authority, granted him 10 minutes alone with the patient. In the hospital room, Darius administered a paralytic that left Grayson conscious but unable to move or speak. "You remember Vanessa Morgan," Darius said, showing him a photograph. "Tell me about Wilson's collection." Grayson's eyes widened in recognition and fear. Unable to resist the paralytic and believing death was imminent, he blinked in Morse code, a skill from his military days. Darius recorded the confession with a hidden camera, capturing every detail about Wilson's trophy room, the digital archives, the names of corrupt officials who had helped cover their crimes. Unlike with Mercer, Darius left no physical evidence on Grayson. Instead, he administered a compound that would trigger cardiac arrest hours later, long after he had left the hospital. The death appeared natural, a tragic complication from an allergic reaction. No one connected it to Mercer's murder except Assistant Chief Wilson, who received a single text message that evening: "2 down, 1 remains." The following morning, Detective Corey found a package on her desk containing Grayson's confession, meticulously edited to remove specific mentions of Wilson while preserving the evidence of systemic corruption. The package included files detailing how evidence in assault cases had been manipulated over years, with Vanessa Morgan's case highlighted specifically. "We need to reopen the Morgan investigation," Corey told her captain. "These aren't coincidences." Richard Wilson, now Assistant Chief of Police, was a man who had built his career on performative respectability while concealing monstrous appetites. The son of a prominent judge, he had navigated Oak Ridge County's power structures with ease, using his position to identify potential victims and intimidate those who might expose him. His home in the exclusive Lakeview district featured a state-of-the-art security system, regular patrols, and a panic room designed to military specifications. Following Grayson's death, Wilson retreated to his home, emerging only for essential department functions. He doubled his security detail, varied his routes to work, and began sleeping with a weapon within reach. The hunter had become the hunted, and paranoia was consuming him. His younger wife noticed the change. "What's happening, Richard?" she asked as he checked the security monitors for the 3rd time that evening. "Nothing," he snapped. "Mind your own business." Darius knew a direct assault on Wilson's fortress would fail. Instead, He exploited the one vulnerability in Wilson's armor: his elderly father, Judge Howard Wilson, now residing in Oak Ridge assisted living with early-stage dementia. According to Grayson's confession, the judge had not only protected his son's criminal activities, but had actively participated in destroying evidence and intimidating victims. Securing a position as an orderly at the facility required minimal effort. Background checks were cursory for underpaid positions with high turnover. Within a week, Darius had established himself as a competent, unremarkable employee who volunteered for night shifts on the memory care unit where Judge Wilson resided. On the night of March 3, 2023, while the facility was understaffed due to a winter storm, Darius entered the judge's room. "I've been expecting someone," the old man said, surprisingly lucid. "Richard said you might come." Darius placed a recorder on the bedside table. "Then you know what I want." The judge smiled, revealing teeth too perfect to be natural. "Of course, but information has a price." For 3 hours, they engaged in a psychological chess match. The judge revealed details about his son's security systems, about the hidden room behind the wine cellar where Richard kept his collection, about the rotation schedules of his security team, each piece of information extracted through careful negotiation rather than force. "You're hunting my son," the judge observed as dawn approached. "You don't have jungle fever like the others, do you? This is personal." "Your son and his friends destroyed my wife," Darius replied, showing him Vanessa's photograph. Recognition flickered in the old man's rheumy eyes. "The psychologist. She was special." His tongue darted across his lips. "Richard said she fought harder than the others. I watched the recording." In that moment, Darius understood that the corruption extended across generations, a legacy of predation masquerading as justice. When the morning shift found Judge Wilson dead in his bed, they attributed it to natural causes, an elderly man with a history of heart problems. No investigation was launched. No questions were asked. The only person who suspected otherwise was Assistant Chief Richard Wilson, who discovered he could no longer access the hidden server containing his collection. The security code, known only to himself and his father, had been changed. The final act of Darius Morgan's 5-year mission began on March 10, 2023. Using the access codes and security protocols obtained from Judge Wilson, he methodically dismantled the digital protection surrounding Wilson's estate. Surveillance cameras began showing loops of empty corridors. Motion sensors reported false positives so frequently that guards began ignoring them. The security team, trained to respond to direct threats, failed to recognize the systematic degradation of their defensive perimeter. While electronically compromising the estate, Darius simultaneously initiated the final phase of his information distribution system. Digital packages containing evidence were queued for delivery to specific journalists, federal agents, and oversight committees, programmed to deploy automatically if he didn't enter a cancellation code every 12 hours. Justice would be served regardless of his survival. On the night of March 15, 2023, as a severe thunderstorm descended on Oak Ridge County, Darius approached Wilson's estate through the drainage culvert that Judge Wilson had mentioned, a vulnerability in the property's security that had never been addressed. The storm provided perfect cover, overwhelming security sensors with false readings and reducing visibility to near zero. Inside the mansion, Wilson paced in his study, a glass of bourbon in hand, jumping at every thunder crash. The murders of Mercer and Grayson, the increasing scrutiny from Detective Corey, the unexplained changes to his private server. The carefully constructed walls of his life were crumbling. When the power flickered and his backup generator failed to engage, true fear gripped him for the first time. Wilson reached for his phone to call his security team, finding no signal. His panic room, designed to withstand military-grade assaults, required electronic activation, now impossible without power. As he fumbled for the manual override key kept in his desk drawer, the study door opened silently, revealing a figure backlit by lightning. "Hello, Chief Wilson," Darius said, stepping into the room. "Or should I call you Captain? That was your rank when you assaulted my wife." Wilson lunged for his weapon, managing to fire 2 wild shots before Darius disarmed him with practiced efficiency. "Vanessa Morgan," Darius continued, forcing Wilson into his leather executive chair. September 23, 2018, you remember her? I don't know what you're talking about, Wilson stammered, eyes darting toward the hidden panel concealing his panic room. You've made a mistake. Darius smiled without warmth. That's what Mercer said. That's what Grayson said. Both died with lies on their lips. He placed a laptop on Wilson's desk, screen displaying a paused video. Shall we watch your collection together? I've accessed your server. Color drained from Wilson's face as Darius played excerpts from videos documenting years of assaults, including Vanessa's. You're going to kill me, Wilson whispered, resignation replacing fear. Like you killed them. Darius shook his head slowly. Death would be too merciful. I have something more appropriate planned for you. When Detective Corey led the FBI tactical team into Wilson's mansion at 6:17 a.m. on March 16, 2023, they found the assistant chief handcuffed to his desk, surrounded by physical evidence from dozens of assault cases. Displayed on multiple monitors throughout the room were videos documenting years of crimes, faces of victims clearly visible, timestamps providing irrefutable chronology. Wilson himself had been beaten in a manner identical to Vanessa Morgan's assault, his injuries mirroring hers with surgical precision. He was here, Wilson kept repeating as paramedics treated his wounds. Morgan. It was Darius Morgan. Agents searching the property found no trace of an intruder, no evidence anyone had breached the security perimeter. What they did discover, hidden behind a false wall in the wine cellar, was Wilson's trophy room, a shrine to his victims containing personal items taken as souvenirs, cataloged with dates and photographs. At 9:00 a.m. that same morning, every major news outlet in the country simultaneously received comprehensive files documenting the crimes of Wilson, Grayson, and Mercer, along with evidence of the systematic corruption that had protected them. The files included witness statements, medical records, and testimony from officers who had been coerced into silence. The story exploded across national media, prompting the Attorney General to announce a federal investigation into Oak Ridge County's law enforcement. 2 days later, a man matching Darius Morgan's description was admitted to Mercy Hospital in a neighboring county with multiple gunshot wounds sustained during an apparent robbery attempt. By the time FBI agents arrived, the patient had disappeared, leaving behind only blood-stained sheets and a photograph of Vanessa Morgan with their daughters. 6 months later, Detective Corey received an unmarked package containing a final confession from Richard Wilson, recorded during his confrontation with Darius Morgan. In it, Wilson admitted to 27 assaults spanning 15 years, providing details that only the perpetrator could know. The recording ended with Wilson's broken plea, "You've destroyed everything I've built. What more do you want?" Darius Morgan's response was captured with perfect clarity. Justice. Nothing more, nothing less. The man who had once been Darius Morgan was never found. Some claimed to have seen him in Atlanta near his daughter's school. Others reported sightings in Chicago, Miami, even overseas. The truth remained elusive. What remained concrete was his legacy. A Justice Department investigation that ultimately indicted 38 officials for crimes ranging from obstruction of justice to criminal conspiracy. The establishment of an independent oversight commission for police departments nationwide, and a foundation in Vanessa Morgan's name providing support to assault survivors. On the 5th anniversary of Vanessa's death, 2 teenage girls placed flowers on her grave. Beside them stood a man whose features had been altered by time and purpose, unrecognizable to those who had known Darius Morgan. He placed a hand on each girl's shoulder as they knelt before the headstone. "Mom would be proud of you," one whispered. The man said nothing, his silence carrying the weight of a promise kept, a justice delivered, a chapter finally closed.